This week's episode of The Grid is sponsored by Impix. Shoot today, upload tonight, we ship tomorrow. Manfrotto. Imagine more. On One Software, software that gets you back to shooting.
Adorama, more than a camera store. And Tiffin, helping create the world's greatest images.
Well, hi, everybody, and welcome to another live episode of The Grid. With sound effects by...
You like that, don't you?
That was very nice.
I know. It's
by my
I should do the
co-host,
sound effects.
Matt Klaskowski.
Hey, everybody, welcome back.
How's it going, Matt?
Oh, good. Scott, how about you?
Very good. Good.
So right before the show, Scott was in the whole front of the building, and I see him walking back, and he's walking back, he's looking at his phone, and he gets all the way back to the set, and he goes, "Where's my glasses?"
I left him in makeup. I'm like, it's that moment where you realize, why is everything fuzzy? And then all of a sudden, everything was clear.
How bad do you have like a bad prescription, or is it just?
No, actually, I'm fine. I can see close.
Oh, okay.
And I can see, well, everything's kind of fuzzy here. Things that are far away are fuzzy. Like, for example, I know that's Pete, but if I didn't know that was Pete, I would swear that was George Clooney.
Oh.
So it's very, it throws you off.
See, if I don't have contacts in or I don't have my glasses on, my prescription is so bad I can't see anything in front of me.
Oh yeah, I'm
I can't read
I'm
my
cool.
watch.
I'm cool up front. Hey,
Anyway.
we have a lot of exciting things for you today.
More exciting than our eyesight.
I think we need to tell you one thing, that when we say the show starts at 4,
It's ish.
it's ish. It means
Yeah.
4-ish. We're going to start around 4-ish. We had a couple little technical problems, which we still have not solved, but we will to be able to show you something a little later in the show. But first, I want to take a moment to introduce you to the International Ambassadress of Love, all the way from Sancerre, France. Please welcome Miss Nancy Massé.
Bonjour, comment allez-vous?
Bonjour, mademoiselle. How are you, Nancy?
I am doing great.
How are things in Nancy Town?
Everything on Earth, Nancy, is rather fantastic today.
How do people get in touch with us during this wonderful show, Nancy?
How could they join the conversation?
Well, they can join in on the live blog, which we are moderating comments today to make it easier for the contest. And they can also send us a tweet by using the hashtag #TheGridLive. And we will add them in, and that's how we do what we do.
Yeah, and we like to take your questions and stuff, so please.
We kind of rely on it.
Yeah, we kind of rely on it because we don't ever have a good enough topic to really carry a whole show. We do have a couple important things just before we get started real quick. Number one is, yesterday, the guys from Nikon Professional Services were here, and they brought a D4.
They brought 3 of them, actually.
They brought 3 D4s, and I knew the day before. I heard that my buddy Dave Moser kind of told me, I'm not supposed to tell you, but they're bringing D4s. So I set up a shoot that I needed to do for my Lightroom book while they were here. So what I basically did was I was just going to take some pictures in the background, and then Matt says, this is literally an hour and a half before we did it. Why don't we just do a live behind-the-scenes shoot, and I do a question and answer with the Nikon guys. So we actually did it. We put the whole thing together. Kudos to Eric Kuna and his team here, because they had to actually, because we're in a set of studios that we have, but we shot this in our photography studio. So they had to take jibs and cameras and rigs and all this stuff. And we did something we haven't done before, too. We broadcast it live here at the Grid location, but then we also broadcast it live as a Google Hangout.
Yeah, because RC actually set it up so that it was more than 10 people. Because you can only have a Google Hangout with 10 people.
Right.
But it was set up so that everybody could watch it, which I thought was pretty cool.
So it was a live behind-the-scenes shoot with the football player I was shooting for my thing, but basically it was really the Nikon guys answering questions about the D4. I got to shoot with it, and it was amazing. But where can you go watch this? You can actually go to, you can watch it right there, apparently.
KelbyTV.com/The Grid.
Yeah, go to The Grid, and it's archived, so you can watch it there. If you're on Google+, you can just watch it. Go to my page. Just search for Scott Kelby. You'll find it on Google+, and it plays right there. Yep. So, and it's going to be on iTunes and everywhere else. So, but make sure you go check it out on YouTube. It's on YouTube too. Just go to YouTube and search for Nikon D4, and you'll find it. So, anyway, that was kind of cool. A couple other things. Let's see. I've got a seminar seminar tour coming up. I am going to a bunch of places. I am going to, on Monday, I'll be in Austin, Texas. I haven't been to Austin, I figured, in almost 10 years.
Really?
I've been to Houston. I was just in Houston. I've been to Dallas the last couple of years. I don't know, and I love Austin. I don't know how I missed Austin, but I'll be in Austin on Monday. So please come and join me. We have about 400 photographers there. You won't be lonely. And then next I'm going to Dallas, Phoenix, and we just announced 2 more dates today, Atlanta.
And Tampa?
And Tampa, Florida.
Those are your favorite,
And
right?
My tour is actually winding to an end here because I'm going to have new tours coming out this year. So this tour's only got a few more dates left in the year. So I think we have 1 or 2 more beyond those, and that's it. So I hope to see you in person in one of those cities.
This is. I mean, it's not going to run throughout the rest of the year. So if you haven't gotten it yet, if you can get to one of those cities, you want to go.
Yeah, so if you're anywhere near Austin, I hope I'll see you on Monday because I'll be there and I'll be.
So I was in Austin last January teaching. I think I was teaching the Lightroom tour, and it snowed. So
Did
they
it?
Never. I mean, yeah, they very very rarely get snow, but it snowed the day that I was there.
Yeah.
The
You
day
know,
of the
RC
tour.
wants to go to Austin. He's got that thing with the state capitol going
Capitol,
on.
yeah.
He shot this state capitol shots. He's got some really great HDR stuff there. So he's dying. I'm going there. Hey, we have some prizes. What are our prizes?
Our prizes are apparently a Photoshop Elements book.
A brand new one.
It's one that you and I.
We did. We co-authored
remember
this.
this
Yeah.
one?
Yeah.
Anyway, Photoshop Elements 10 for digital photographers, and it is a whopping 432 pages, so it's got quite a bit of info on Photoshop Elements, but brand new, just out, so you'll win that, and then...
Copy of Matt's compositing book.
Sure.
And a copy of my Lightest Shooter Retouching book.
Ooh.
And Nancy has
And-
something. Nancy?
I have a prize. It's over there, and I will grab it during the commercial break. But I have a Nap baseball cap from the Nap Gear Store.
Nice. And we'll throw away, apparently one that's been in the warehouse for 6 months. No, I'm just kidding.
we
I'm
just
just
got
kidding.
it.
All right, so we'll be giving away a Nap ball cap too. So we got some giveaways. And I bet we'll come up with something else before the end of the show. Hey, I'd be happy to give away 2 tickets, Nancy, to my Austin seminar for someone that can't afford to go. So don't go if you're like really wealthy, like if you're a doctor, an anesthesiologist. Don't sign up for this. But for someone who would like to be there but couldn't spend the $99, I'd be happy to cough up a 1 ticket to 2 different people, Nancy. Okay?
You got it.
So that's for Austin on Monday.
Cool.
All right, couple other quick things. We talked about that. We talked about that.
Westcott.
Hey, Westcott. So listen to this. I literally just heard this. It's Westcott/Adobe as I was coming to my desk. So Adobe is going to put, well, first, let me back up. Wacom, Westcott. That's who it is. Westcott does this thing at Photoshop World that is wildly possible. They set up these live shooting booths where you can go. They set up a whole set. They have professional models. They light it and everything with spider lights. And so they're continuous lights, so you don't have to worry about using flashes and stuff. And people lose their minds over this because you get incredible shots. You get to play with their lights. It's wonderful. So Adobe has seen the popularity of this, and they agreed after much love. No, they actually was their idea, I believe. They came up with the idea to put a lab right next door. So Adobe's going to have a lab. You can shoot at Westcott, go over there and process your images. There'll be Adobe people there to help you. There's all the Adobe software, all the stuff. What else do you know about it? 'Cause
Well, I think we're
I
gonna
heard
be
about this.
Yeah, so we're going to be hanging out there too. So,
Oh, we are?
Yeah, so we'll have
There you go.
Photoshop guys on hand to kind
I
of
literally
roam
heard
around
about
and-
this as I'm walking to the set. But anyway, that's really cool. The
Yeah.
Westcott thing is amazing. And you know what the most frustrating thing about shooting at the Westcott booth is? You can't do anything with your photos.
I know, because you want to do it right there.
Now you can walk over to a workstation. I think that's really cool. So kudos to Adobe for doing that. Hey, and kudos to Adobe also. I don't know if you heard, I would send you to either my blog. Yeah, go to my blog at scottkelby.com. I wrote an open letter to Adobe a while back about concerns that I had about leaving CS3 and CS4 users behind when CS6 comes out.
Yeah.
Which was a change in Adobe's policy, but they have kind of updated the policy to make sure that they don't leave everybody behind. Go to the details. Go to my blog. Go back maybe a week, and I titled the thing "You Spoke, Adobe Listened" because it was really your comments. It was the highest commented post I've ever had in the history of my blog, and people made really, really great cases, and Adobe really listened. So also kudos to Adobe. Adobe's doing everything right.
Cool.
All right, I want to plug something real quick. It is my own thing, but I've written this series of books, Digital Photography, Volumes 1, 2, 3, and I have completed writing Volume 4.
It's going to be in the...
It's going to press, I think, Friday.
Yeah.
Or maybe some part of it Friday. There it is. There's the cover right there. So this is Volume 4. Now, we're not calling it Volume 4. We're calling it Part 4. And here's why. Because people would hear about the series and they would go buy volume 3, thinking, well, that's the latest one. They are completely different books. They are, like, volume 1 is one book by itself.
Yeah.
Volume 2 is by itself. Volume 3 builds on volumes 1 and 2, and this picks up where the other ones left off. Now, you could say, well, that's very clever, Scott. You're making us buy 4 books. Yes, I am. But that was never the plan. I never expected there to be a part 2.
Okay, so can I say something?
Sure.
That I know you won't say this. This digital photography book series is the best-selling digital photography book ever, right?
Yeah.
Ever. So it's not and that's volume 1. I think that was volume 1 alone. But
Right.
but this series, I know Scott won't say that. It is the best-selling digital photography book ever. And we're not saying this. This is the numbers actually coming from the industry.
From Nielsen Bookscan.
Yeah. So it's and I think when people get volume 3 or 4 today, they want to go back and get volume 1 and 2 because there's such good information in there. So
But I wrote it kind of like I wrote volume 1 to stand on its own, and then everybody was like, when are you doing volume 2? I was like, crap, I wasn't really planning on doing a volume 2.
I used everything I had in one.
But I added new things, like, because the volume 1 doesn't really have a lot on studio or hot shoe flash, where volume 2 adds that in.
Yeah.
And so the books kind of build on each other. So when I wrote volume 4, it gets weird to write these books because I don't want to put anything that was in volume 1, 2, and 3. In fact, my editor has been very, very careful to make sure that there's no overlap with any of the 3 previous books. That is all new concept. But the stuff in volume 4 is, I don't want to say it's a little more advanced, but it's a little more advanced.
Well, yeah, and I think because what people naturally assume is they get volume 4 and they read through it and they say, well, where's the stuff on...
How do you turn on your flash? How do you use it wireless?
Well, that's back in volume 2.
Yeah. So I hate to try to sell you on 4, but I don't really hate to try to sell you 4, but that was never the intent. It's just...
They're cheap, go buy all 4
So
anyway.
we're changing them to part 1, part 2, part 3, and part 4 because the volume thing was thinking, oh, well, volume 3 is the latest one. That's the latest version of that book, but it's not. It's the third part of that book. Does that make sense?
It does.
All right.
Congrats, man. This one's
thanks.
going to be just as successful as all the others.
I hope so. I really work, and can I just tell you guys, I don't want to talk too much about this, but I was supposed to have written this book last year. And of course, my publisher has sold this book to all the bookstores. And I had to make a very, very hard call to them and tell them, guys, I'm not ready to write this book.
Yeah.
Which, believe me, everybody at Peach Pit Press wanted to just stab me because the series has been so successful. And they've sold it to all these bookstores and all these buyers all over the world. It's translated into dozens of different languages. But you know what it was? I didn't feel like I had enough great content.
I remember having this discussion with you.
And I told you, I said, you know what this is? I don't want to write a book that all of a sudden it's like, volume 1 was great, volume 2 was great, volume 3 was great. Volume 4 was a little weak, it felt fluffy. So I had to wait until I really had enough stuff there. I thought this is going to be a kick-butt book. It took me an extra year to come up with that. But I wanted it to be great. And so it was nice to be able to finally call up my editor out of nowhere. He answers the phone, this is Ted. And I hate my editor, he's awful. No, he's a wonderful guy. I call up Ted and I said, Ted, I have news for you. And he's what? I said, I have enough really, really good content. I actually have more content than I need to write the 4th book. And then they were nice to me again. But anyway, so that's why a lot of people have been saying, why so long for this one? Because it had to be great. I didn't want to kill the whole series by writing the 4th one and not being kick-ass. So that's where I was. We are going to have an intimate moments with Scott and Matt at the end of the show, if we have time. So these are where you can ask us anything unless it's wildly personal. So boxers or briefs probably is not it, but answer just questions about anything. And let's see, what was the last thing? We're going to take a short break. When we come back, I have a mini thing I want to tell you about that happened on my blog this week. Just a micro thing. And then we're going to get to our topic. Our topic this week is, as photographers, what do we get by doing things the hard way? Right? So think about that for a second, and then we'll explain. We'll take the whole thing out, and we really, really want to hear your comments. Of course, you won't have any until we really explain what that is, but hopefully you'll have some. After the break, stick around. We'll be right back right here live on
The Grid.
The Grid.
At Adorama, our trained staff share your love of photography and can help you find what you're looking for. Our inventory is stocked with all types of cameras and accessories you need. Adorama has it all. Adorama, more than just a camera store. Visit us at 42 West 18th or at adorama.com.
Hey everybody, this is Sil Arena, and I am proud to say that I'm a Canonista. If you shoot Canon and you're looking to learn how to use Canon speedlights, I want you to check out my classes on kelbytraining.com. I'll show you what the buttons and dials do. How do you take your speedlight off camera, and why should you? What are modifiers? What modifiers would you use if you were a novice? What do you do with an umbrella aside from protect yourself from the rain? What's ETTL? Why should you shoot in manual? What's a master and what's a slave? How do you get them to talk to each other? What the heck is high-speed sync? A lot of people have said Canon speedlights don't do the job that other speedlights will do. I'm sure after watching my courses, you'll completely disagree.
Hey, we are back. Scott Kelby here with Matt Kloskowski. Matt is now wearing the nap cap we'll be giving away a little later. There is one hitch. You're going to have to check for lice when you get your copy.
Man, I thought we weren't going there in intimate moments.
Sorry. Hey, by the way, I wanted to clarify that. When we do the intimate moments thing, that wasn't intimate moments between
us.
It's like intimate
That's
moments
after the show.
with us. So that's okay. Hey,
this is the cap.
Can I tell you something interesting? I'm not kidding when I say I swear this is the truth. I just looked up to the prompter and it was going sideways.
I saw one across.
Yeah, I saw the whole thing scrolling to the left. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. Well, that's why we have this piece of paper here.
Right now it says 125 grid outline.
Never works. It is an orphaned.
Oh wait,
thing.
it's moving.
It's moving slowly. Okay, but we're going to move on with our topic. So this is our mini topic. I just got to tell you a story from my blog because this has happened, and we've had things like this happen a million times. Well, I'll start off with something that somebody wrote something on my blog about Adobe last week, and Adobe came out with this plan for their pricing. Mm-hmm. And they listened to their customers, right? And they changed they modified their plan to include these things. That's a great thing. But you always have to have these people that think, oh, well, I think that's what Adobe really planned all the time. They were going to get your money here and then get your money there and do this and do that and all. You know what? I know the people at Adobe. I know a lot of people that work there. And they don't sit in a dark room and go, how can we screw everybody? Yeah. You know what? I've been in so many meetings at Adobe, and they're always so customer focused. But this permeates when people think that everything's a conspiracy and that everything is. And so this happened on my blog this week, where a guy writes in. I put up on my blog this week my favorite football shots of the season. So the shots that I like the best that I took from my season of shooting football.
Innocent enough post.
Yeah, I thought, oh, well, here's my favorite
What could anybody say about this?
Right. So, and when I put up posts on my blog, I can only make them 516 pixels, which is a frustrating size for a photographer. 516 pixels is this big. So I always write, please click to see a bigger version. They look better, bigger. So when I did my blog post this week, I wrote, and now I can't say that this comment was on my blog or it was on Google Plus or Facebook or Twitter because I posted this everywhere. In one of those forums, somebody wrote, Mr. Kelby, I got a question for you. Why is it, or it's just curious to me how I notice how many photographers want you to click on the photo and see it larger. Why don't you come clean? You guys get some kind of a kickback. Is it a page per view count that goes up that you get paid on? Yeah, you're sending more ads. Yeah, you're getting more ad impressions, and that runs your numbers up so you can charge more money. I'm like,
really?
I mean, that's exactly what I'm like. Are you kidding me? And so this reminded me. So I wrote the guy back, and I shouldn't have even written him back really, but I wrote back and said, the reason why I want you to see my photos bigger is because they look better. Just like I wrote in there, there's not a secret agenda. And I know some people really want to think that my life is crappy, but it's not my fault because there's some big organization that's controlling everything and pulling these strings. All this reminded me of a day that happened to me with my son. So I'm driving him to school. This is 3 years ago. Driving him to school one day, and we're in the median of the school. Well, maybe 3 years is maybe 5 years ago, but 5 years ago is more likely. We're in the median on the way to his school, and there are people with signs outside saying the government blew up the Pentagon. And there are signs that say there was no airplane, it wasn't a terrorist attack, and all these different ones. Yeah. So my son is reading these, and he's like, Dad, what is that about? And I said, and I'm trying to describe this to like a 9-year-old or a 10-year-old. So I said to him, I said, son, there are people who are conspiratorialists. And he said, what's a conspiratorialist? I said, it's a person that wants to believe something so badly that there is no fact or proof that you could give them that would ever change their mind. And I said, and that's what's happening here. These people really want to believe that happened. They want to believe it so badly that they're standing on a median on US 19 trying to get other people to believe it. And I said, Jordan, if I were to take 100 eyewitnesses that were standing outside the Pentagon and saw the plane crash into the Pentagon and explode, they saw it with their own eyes, those people in the media would go, they were just paid off by the government.
Yeah, the government
they
hired
really
them.
were there. This is just all a big payoff. This is all. And so when people, I know that when I wrote, this is why I shouldn't answer the guy back, because I know when I wrote the guy back that he went, and I said, look, I only want you to see it because it doesn't increase my money. I don't get any extra. I just want you to see it big so it looks good.
It's football photos. They look good with all the detail and everything.
They do look good bigger. They're much better. Much better. And I hate
small.
showing my pictures like little thumbnail size on. So anyway, I wrote back to him and all this stuff. But I did say, and I told him, I said, look, I just want you to see it larger. It's not about some conspiracy. There's no money to be made. And we hear these all the time. We hear these things, and I use Ellen Chrome lighting. It's exactly what I use. I tried an Ellen Chrome light once, and I had Brad sell every light we had. We had white lightnings. I had Pro Photo. We had everything. We sold it all on eBay, and I said, Brad, go buy all this new stuff. I don't get money from Ellen Chrome. Ellen Chrome doesn't send me I wish, by the way, Ellen Chrome, feel free. But they don't send me a check. They don't send me, we want something. If we need something for the studio, I call Brad. Brad places an order. Brad's like, yeah, and we buy it. So it's just... It's when I know when I wrote that guy back, this is what he said. Sure.
Oh, gosh.
Because he thinks everything's a conspiracy to make us all rich and blah, blah, blah.
And there's nothing you can do.
Okay.
There's nothing you can do.
Well, this kind of almost seesaws us in to the next one. Hey, Michelle Hedrum goes, you guys get kickbacks for every comment we put in the chat box.
We
here,
do.
right?
We get a penny.
We do. We get a penny. So please
at the end of the show,
often.
we'll make $3.72.
And Bienson says, kudos to Adobe for rethinking their upgrade strategy.
Yep.
Hey, you know what though? I mean, that's a lot for them to do. So I was really very pleased. I think how they changed their policy could not have been more fair. So I was very, very pleased. Let's see.
Steel Toad says Adobe was behind the new code conspiracy. I've always thought they were too.
Hey, you know what? The new Coke conspiracy was the best thing that ever happened to Coke. To Coke. It was one. We still talk about it today as either a huge mistake or a brilliant marketing move, and we'll never ever know. But I'm just glad that Coke tastes like Coke, even though
I'm going with
I drink Coke.
Big
Diet
mistake.
Coke. Big mistake, yeah. Okay, so our topic today is, as photographers, what do we gain by doing things the hard way? And here's where this comes from. So Matt and I both use plugins in our daily work quite a bit. We both shoot HDR. We both use Photoshop. And so what'll happen is I'll write like, hey, I use Nik Color Effects Pro for this. And there's always a couple of people, there's always a group of people who will say, oh, well, sure, you use a plugin.
Isn't that cheating?
That's not cheating.
And that's the one that isn't that cheating, or
Sure.
I prefer to do it the way in Photoshop where you have to add 6 layers and
then you
blend
invert the
modes
lanes and change the blend
filter.
modes and all. And then you'll hear other people talk about, oh, well, yeah, that guy uses a bunch of plugins. Well, sure, he uses a bunch of plugins. Oh, that thing's way retouched. You know what? It's 2012. When are we going to finally? Because here's what happens. I think that photographers, not all photographers, so I'm not speaking to everybody. I think there are a group of old-time photographers that have been doing this for a long time that really are cranked that we have plugins, that we have Photoshop, that we can shoot with digital photography, because people will get on my blog and get on Google Plus and they'll go, oh, well, back when I used to shoot, we had 24 shots, and if we couldn't get the shot, we weren't,
Yeah, and that, so I think that's partially what got us talking about this topic, was really, because the name of the topic is, as photographers, what do we gain by doing things the hard way? And we've both been there, where we've been out teaching, and you get a student that comes up to you, and they're talking about, well, I'm going to such and such school, and usually it's not a very cheap school. I'm going to such and such school, and I'm majoring in photography, and we spent our instructors for the whole first year made us shoot film. And so that's kind of what got us talking about a lot of this.
And I hear this at every freaking seminar when I talk to somebody about that. And we spent 2 semesters or whatever doing black and white, developing black and white prints.
So what it all comes back to is, what do we gain by having to do it the hard way? Should, and when, I guess, when does that point cross? Should we have to continue doing it the hard way? If you're starting out as a photographer today, you're 18, 19 years old, you're going to school for photography, what do you gain by learning about, by actually shooting film and spending an entire year in the darkroom?
Yeah.
Now, I agree to a point. They should learn about it. Maybe a class.
Yeah, maybe you should read about it.
Yeah.
An article. You know what people used to have to do in the old days? That's like saying, you know what? You're going to drive an Indy car. But to really appreciate that, you need to drive in a horse and buggy for a while. Because if you put 6 months in a horse and buggy, you'll go, man, these Indy cars are so fast. This is great. But go ahead.
I was going to say, I also don't think this is limited to the photography industry.
It's not.
This is everybody in the entire world that has been near somebody that has done this. You just used the car analogy. I'm sure there's race drivers, car race drivers that are 80 years old saying, back when I was 20 and we were racing cars, we had to push our cars onto the track, and
and we didn't have guys on headphones telling us, hey, you're in 4th place, And so all of these things, because here's what I was talking to my wife at lunch about this, and she said something I thought she really nailed it. Now I'm going to give you the full comment that she said, because she said something funny at the end but and I think this is really good. If you believe that your photography has been shaped by your life, right, your experiences, and the technology that was available to you back then, because no matter when you did photography, there were people before you that had it harder than you. You had people shooting view cameras and putting, the puff of smoke and the whole night, whatever you call that stuff. What was that? TNT? No. But that had it harder than you. So at some point, your experiences were shaped by the technology and the experiences that you had, all right? Then you'd have to agree today that today's photographers are being shaped by their life and being shaped by their technology that's available for you. So if you believe that your way was better, the old way, without digital, without plugins, without Photoshop, then just be quiet and be glad that you're obviously better than these new people who are clearly headed for a train wreck. But that's what it is, you know what? It's 2012. These are the tools that we use. And you know what? This stuff about, well, I'm a purist, I don't use plugins. No, you're stupid.
Yeah, it means you want to take a long time to do things.
That means you want to do things the hard way. And you know what? I've never used plugins more in my life than I do today. I use plugins from On1. I use plugins from Nik software. I use Topaz Adjust and Topaz Detail.
If I open up Photoshop today, in 2011 was the start of the year for plugins.
Yep.
If I open up Photoshop today, chances are every time I open up Photoshop, I open up a plugin.
And why do you do it?
Because it's just easier.
It's just easier. It's just faster and easier. And I think what really is important, we've lost, because these people are angry about, well, it's the process. It's the process. You know, you don't really know. These kids today, they don't really understand black and white. Every time I meet a kid that spend a semester doing black and white, I always ask them, well, did you learn anything from it? And they're like, not really.
Yeah. And so, and that's a good question. So, let's throw that question out there. People are already responding, but should a photography student today have to start for a semester in the darkroom, a year in the darkroom, like a lot of schools will make you? So should they have to? Because
they're never going to be in a darkroom. And you know what it is? I think a lot of this is I wrote something about this. I think that a lot of photographers want us to respect them for how hard they had it. Mm-hmm. Like, you kids, my son goes to school with a calculator. He uses a calculator in his classroom. He uses a laptop at his classroom. If I go to my son and go, you know that when I was in school, we weren't allowed to use calculators. Well, precisely because they weren't invented yet, because I went back there and dinosaurs roamed the earth. But, and you know what he would say? He wouldn't go, wow, Dad, that's amazing. How did you get through school? You know what my son would say, literally? Really? Oh.
Yeah.
Sucks for you. Yeah. I mean, that would be the end of it. He's not getting respect for me. He's not doing anything. He's just like, really? You didn't get to use a calculator? Too bad.
And that's probably, to me, that's probably one of the biggest points in this whole thing, because you nailed it. I think we think that, because we've all done it too. I do it to my kids. My kids do something, and I'm like, when I was a kid, we had to do that. And that's not going to make them. I do it. I mean, I even joke around with Corey RC or Pete that are here, and when I first started, I had to go buy the meat at Publix that we used for the Nap grill, and I'm not getting respect from them because I had to do that. I get respect from them for what I can do here and work with them. But our kids are the same way. Photography is the same way. Dave Black is a perfect example, because I listened to Dave tell stories about back when he was shooting sports, and the autofocus issues, and
there was no autofocus. Yeah. They were doing manual and shooting film,
and you didn't have 11 frames per second.
No.
So you listen to those stories. I don't sit there and I don't say, Dave, I respect you as a photographer today because of that. I respect Dave as a photographer today because of Dave's work, because of what he's doing today.
What he's doing now.
I admire what he had to go through, and that's the key here.
And I love some of his old photos. I love some of his old photos. But it's like reading a history book. Oh, really? That's what you used to do? You shoot film? On football? You manual focused at football? That must have been hard. But I'm amazed by what Dave is doing today, because Dave has kept up with the times. Instead of saying, oh, well, this is crap and all, Dave would be the first guy to use plugins. Dave would be when he's not shooting photojournalism, Dave embraces today's technology. He uses all kinds of off-camera flashes. He's done all this stuff. And so how do we get these guys that are the cranky guys to finally realize it's 2012, this is the way the game is done today, and it doesn't mean it's cheating. It's just this is where it is today. Mm-hmm. When you were shooting, you used cameras that were way, way better, and you had better developing and better labs than the photographers 30 years before you.
Yep.
So you didn't invent photography. Let's read some comments.
Yeah. So Barb, I'm just going to stop at Barb. I can't remember.
Barb playing HDR.
Sorry.
Barb's playing HDR.
It looked like Barb Splander herder too.
It did.
Anyway, isn't driving a car cheating? I mean, it gets you there quicker, but you should be walking.
Good one.
David Hodgins, just to clarify, it's okay to use Photoshop to modify or enhance your images, but it's not okay to use a plugin to modify or enhance Photoshop.
Right. What does it matter? So you're using Photoshop. Is it okay to run an action?
Yeah.
Then why isn't it okay to use a plugin? So we're splitting hairs here so badly.
Yeah. This next one's really good. So K-Stall, he says, I actually don't mind plugins, but I do like to see people also show you how to do it with just the base software. Show them how difficult it is to do without plugins and thereby prove your point. See, I kind of disagree a little bit, because you're proving your point should be they're there to learn how you do it.
Right.
So if you use a plugin, then you should teach them how to use a plugin. You don't necessarily, they're not there. You don't have to worry about the people that say, well, I disagree with you, because they came there to learn from you.
Right.
You don't have to prove your point in everything that you teach.
Yeah.
Now, there might be somebody that says, hey, I can't afford the plugin. Can you show me another way to do it?
Right.
Well, then that's a case where we might want to do that.
So for those of you who've been to my Light It, Shoot It, Retouch It tour, there's a point in the tour where I do a very complicated thing. Now, luckily, it's all written in the workbook. Everybody can follow. But it has multiple layers and all this different stuff and blend modes. And we're doing merged layers. And then it's quite a little thing. And then when I'm done with teaching this, I go, okay, now that you've learned that, do you want to see how I really do it? Mm-hmm. And I open a plugin and do it in one click. And the whole audience laughs. Because I show that for the people that can't afford the plugin.
Yeah.
So it can be done. But I think it's disingenuous for me to be out there teaching, and I teach them one thing, but then when no one's looking, I go and use a
something
plugin.
else. Yeah.
So Matt and I had this discussion, and we both show people what we really, really do. It's not fair to say, here's the right way to do it, but when no one's looking, I use this other thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think it's just fine. Hey, here's a good one from Eric Falkowski, who is
He's my relative.
Anyone with a Kowski on the end is. Some people feel they need to suffer for art. Plugins ease the suffering. Very good.
Yeah. Ken Younger Brandt says, seriously, I had one of those old cranks teach my Photo 101 course at community college. Methinks the two might go hand in hand.
Yeah. And so, and I feel the same way about darkroom. Now, this is going to make people mad at me, and I've said this before on the grid, but when I talk about darkroom, and I feel the same way about teaching my son cursive when he was in school.
God.
They still teach cursive. What do you do with it? After you sign your name, after you've learned to sign your name, you know what? Anytime I get a letter from someone, anywhere, because people will write me cursive letters, this is what it's like. Dear Scott, I contacted you back. What's that word?
Is that an L or
an
a K?
L? I contacted you
Is that
word.
an M or an N?
And it says, is it lactose? What is that word? So it's like all you're going to do is write your grandmother with them. But you know what's weird is, what should they have been teaching my kid? Not how to use your computer, because kids know how to use their computer. How to maintain your computer. How to not have to be totally reliant like we are on an IT department to do anything. Teach your kids how to maintain their own computer. This is the tool they're going to be using their whole life. This is not. This will be used, it won't even be used to sign checks anymore. What will you do with your signature besides signing a contract here or there in the future? This is useless. Okay.
Scott Kelby says the pen
All right.
is useless. Mark of the day. But
Ryan,
you're right, the cursive thing. What does everybody do? The second that I know, as soon as I didn't have to write, and I think it was up until 8th grade. Until 8th grade, I had to use cursive. Once I got into high school, they said, we don't care what you do. I started printing.
I asked a teacher, why do you teach cursive? And she goes, well, it helps with hand-eye coordination. Can I tell you something? Kids do not need help with hand-eye coordination.
Do you know what Call of Duty does for your hand-eye
Let me tell you
coordination?
what, kids, their hand-eye coordination is stunning. You know who needs help with hand-eye coordination? Older adults, because it's not children. So stop that silly, it helps them with their hand-eye coordination. They don't have a problem with that, because they can take down a missile in 2 seconds in any game, and they're running 14 things on their controller.
They are, too.
They are. I mean, my son doesn't even think about it. My daughter's 5, and she's working on an iPad, and she whips through that thing like it's nothing. All right, Ryan O, by that logic, using anything other than a pinhole camera is cheating. There you go. I mean, this is BJH Down Under says, would you think Ansel Adams would not be using the easy way to process now if he was alive? Ansel Adams had a great quote that he said, I can't wait to see what people do in the future with my images on computers. I'm paraphrasing. It's not exactly that. But I think he would have been one of the guys to embrace it, because he was doing Photoshop in the darkroom. Mm-hmm. And he would have loved to have not had the chemicals.
Oh, yeah. And somebody AE Photog says, I grew up in the darkroom. That's what's wrong with me and why I don't have the sense of smell. LOL.
Hey, this is a good one right here. This is good. Bin Laden says, this is really the whole point of this thing. Isn't the final result what matters? In music studios, producers use Pro Tools or Logic. These are software packages for the studio, the recording studio. Use Pro Tools or Logic plugins to emulate expensive outboard gear or instruments. but a good song is still a good song. It really is the final result. It doesn't so much matter how you get there. Howard, PA, says maybe they only do it so they can watch and say, see, I made them talk about me. So they succeed in getting the attention they obviously crave.
Yeah. This next one too. So Gavin ZA, because he's kind of going on the opposite, not the opposite of our point, but I think that as a newbie to photography and Photoshop, and the numerous plugins like me, it's nice and easy. But doing it the hard way, I get to understand how to do a certain effect with lighting and not cheat it out. My problem with that is not everybody, I mean, you Gavin, you might like the hard way. So my guess is, and Gavin, you have to write back, my guess is you're an engineer of some sort.
Yes.
You're a software developer, you're an engineer, a doctor, something. You're a very, very technical person. But a lot of people don't like the hard way. A lot of people are okay with just getting the result. They don't have to understand how it was done. They don't have to understand what was behind it. They just, they just want to go from point A to B. And that's, coders today. If you're in software development, should you have to go back to punch cards?
No.
So that you knew the hard way, so that you understand that today what you write in one line of code would have taken.
Hey, can I tell you something that's going to get me a lot of hate mail? So I made this mistake one day. So I went to one of the guys in our web department, and we had some page up, and I said, he says, I want to redo this page. And I'm like, why? And he said, well, the code is bad. And I said, but it looks just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the code is really bad. I'm like, is there something not working on the page? He's like, no, but I mean, look at the code. It's just bad code. And I'm like, if it works, what do you care?
Yeah.
I care. And so I said, frick, knock yourself out. And you know when he was done? It looked exactly the same.
Yeah.
But the code was good.
The
Now,
code
I can't
was better.
explain, but that is that kind of, that's,
Yeah.
I want to know how it's done. But here's the thing is, there also, and I think Matt will tell you, there are things that plugins do that Photoshop won't do, or there are things that plugins do that to figure it out.
Nick Color Effects Pro. We talk about this one all the
Brilliance
time.
and warmth.
Bro, I was going to say tonal contrast.
Okay, that one too.
Tonal contrast and Nick Color Effects Pro 3. They have tonal contrast in version 4. It's not quite the same as it was in 3. If you're listening, Nick Software,
Nick, we beg you.
take tonal contrast from 3, put it into 4, because then I don't have to have both versions on my computer.
Amen. But you know what? I still use the one in 4.
I do.
But I have to keep the one in 3 on there.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it just
I know.
looks that little different.
I know, there's
and you know what?
some
But it's probably they didn't change the technology. There's probably a setting they could tell us. And then we would share it with everyone. We would share it
I
with
would
the
if there
world.
was a setting, because I've spent hours with it trying to recreate it.
Yeah.
Besides the point, what we're saying here is tonal contrast is one of those things. We've done tons of little things, and I never get the look that I get from tonal contrast.
No, it's.
So.
And you know what? Who's the best guy that you know on special effects in the world? Not just here in the States, but in the world. Who's probably best?
Calvin Hollywood is.
Calvin Hollywood uses plugins.
Oh yeah,
Calvin's the best.
Uses them all the
Calvin's
time.
insane, and Calvin uses. I know Calvin when he was a guest at my tour over in Cologne, Germany, and he uses Topaz Detail. That's why I started using Topaz Detail. I'm like, frick, if Calvin's using it, I went and bought it, $35. Okay,
Jeff
Keith,
May.
Okay,
Go ahead.
all right. So here we go. Keith Rogers, black and white teaches you to hone your eye for composition and tonality without worrying about color theory. Once you've got that down, then you can use color to add more to your images rather than it just being there for context. If you didn't learn anything, then the teacher wasn't terribly effective. Hey, Keith, I disagree. Okay, Jeff May. I mean, I just flat out disagree with that.
Yeah.
I have not talked to a kid yet that went through that said, you know what I learned in that black and white class? I learned tonality. You know what? You learned how to work in the dark with chemicals.
You learned how to fall asleep in class.
Now, studying black and white photography is a different topic. But spending a semester in the dark room, I don't think makes your photos any better. And I know that, you know what, everybody that would argue with that is going to want to teach that when they become, because you know what it is? You're teaching that because the people before you taught it. You learned it from your professor. Jeff May.
Jeff May says, what do you get? So Jeff May is answering the question, what do you gain? You gain the basic knowledge that helps you do advanced work. If all you use is plugins, your abilities are limited. Saying that, once you know what you're doing, plugins make work much faster.
You agree?
No.
Nah. All right, Joey Wright Photo. All photographers should love any tool that lets them spend less time at the computer and more time shooting. I don't understand why anybody would argue that. Joey Wright, brilliant guy.
Comment of the day. All right, A. Sablin. Pens are not useless. I still have a digital watch I need it for.
All right, hey, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to do our giveaways, but we're also going to do intimate questions, intimate moments. And then we have something to show you, too.
We do.
We're excited about.
Now.
I'm sorry?
The break, have
Oh, yeah.
them ask their questions during the break so we can do the giveaway and the questions.
All right, did you get, Nancy, say that again, but with feeling.
Use your hands too, please.
And gesture.
I know,
Yeah, use your
I
hands.
never talk with my hands.
I know. Start.
During the commercial break, put your questions in during the commercial break, because when we do the giveaway, I want to make sure you guys have your questions, because the giveaway is going to fill the live blog.
Can I answer Nancy really quick? You got to come back this way though. Here. There we go. So Nancy, during the commercial break, they're going to ask their questions, and then everything will go around here, and then those questions will be ready when everybody gets back.
I can't help myself.
You're very
Plain in
expressive.
hand.
It's the French.
No,
the
it's
French
you
thing.
know what it is? It feels it looks good for you. It's a good.
Do you ever
it
notice
works.
how many times, this is subtle, how many times she does this, which is Eiffel Tower? She keeps just saying, look, I really want you, and then Arc de
And then
Triomphe, she does it many times.
Yeah.
Arc de Triomphe.
And
Eiffel
touchdown.
Tower, and touchdown.
And spleen in hands.
Elk.
Moose. Okay.
Honey.
We're taking a short break. We come back. Stuff, including intimate questions. Send in your intimate questions right now. Look at that.
Hi, I'm Joel Grimes. I'm a commercial advertising photographer. I've been doing this for over 35 years. I'm here at Kelby Training to teach you guys how I do my composites. I start in the studio, we take a subject, put her on a white sweep, shoot with my 3-edge gritty little lighting techniques. Then we go in the field, we shoot some HDR backgrounds, and putting it all together in Photoshop and making it one amazing killer image. If you're interested in this kind of compositing, come check out my classes.
Alrighty, we are back. That was a very short break.
Yes, we're back here.
Here. Hey, Gavin has written this back. Remember the guy, Matt asked him to write in whether he was a developer or an engineer or an IT guy. Matt, read it.
Gavin says, hey, yeah, I'm a developer and IT engineer. Laughing, LOL. It's not so much that I like doing things the hard way. You do. But fighting through Photoshop helped me understand what I want to do and get from a photo. Just because you know how to write with a pen doesn't mean you know how a Wacom works straight out.
And you know what? I got to tell you, I have no idea absolutely how a Wacom tablet works, but I use one every single day.
Yeah, I don't need to know how the pressure sensitivity...
Honestly, I could really care less.
Yeah.
All right, here we go. We got some questions. These are intimate questions. We're answering your questions literally about anything, so it doesn't really matter. John Patrick Fletcher asks, Scott and Matt, what's your favorite color effects plugins and why? You're going to use the same ones I use, so
I am.
Go ahead. You do.
Here, I'll tell you what. I'll let you do. I'll do because you're going to do version 3.
I'll give you.
So I'll do version 4. My favorite is Nik Color Effects. While I love tonal contrast in 3, I would never go back from version 4 because I love it. I love the detail extractor, and I love.
That's only in 4.
I love the detail extractor. I love the sunlight. Filter.
The sunlight is good, isn't it? I just used that on a photo the other day.
It gives a really nice feeling, but a little bit soft. It's kind of like Glamour Glow, but not like Glamour Glow.
See, I was going to say one of my favorites is Glamour Glow.
No, I'm not going there.
Yeah.
And then I love the vignette. They have to me their vignetting little setting in there is really one of the best that's out there.
I love their vignette. I love their bleach bypass. Is very, very good. Also, their pro contrast is very, very good. Their pro contrast is excellent. I also like their, and I don't like these effects, But for fashion stuff, it looks really nice, and there's a lot of it is their cross-processing.
Yeah, cross-processing, the bicolor stuff.
Yeah, that they've got, you know what it is? We joke about it. It's so many photographers' secret weapon. It really is. And those are some of my favorite. I could crack it open to see, because they let you set up a favorites panel.
Yeah.
Hey, is there a way? Is there a way to make the favorites panel like always be first?
I think it's sticky.
Is it sticky?
So I
Okay,
think if
because
you
I'm changing it then. Okay, because I know in 3 you couldn't, and it would always show up with like portrait, and then I would have to switch to favorites.
I love version 4 though. The recipes, the fact that you can stack them all together.
Oh yeah, no.
and
I
it's
couldn't go back to 3, but I have to keep it just for things. Scott, did you have any formal training in photography or shot black and white film? No, I have no formal training in photography, as most people don't. I did shoot a lot of film. I shot a lot of film. I started as a film photographer, had my first studio as a film photographer, so I shot a tremendous amount of film, more than I'd care to admit. But actually, a lot of people have heard me tell this story, but I started in film, and I was so obsessed with photography for so many years that I literally got burned out. And I had a fully equipped studio. I had all this gear. I took every bit of it and I put it in my closet, and I didn't touch it, I think, for 10 solid years. Nothing. And it wasn't until I held a Nikon, I think it was a D100. Is that the one, Brad? The first nice DSLR, the D100? The Nikon? It was like a DSLR, but it was, I want to think, it might not have been the D100, so I might be off by a little bit. But when I saw that, it completely reignited my passion for photography.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was originally a film photographer and doing studio work and stuff like that many years ago.
All right, next one. Let's see. Gavin. Gavin says, Scott or Matt, what was the worst or possibly first, so it doesn't have to be worst or could be worst or first, first photo critique you got on a photo when you started?
Well, it wasn't on an individual photo. I can tell you what was a very hard one. I think I don't want to say it was the worst one, because it was tremendously helpful, but you don't always want to hear what they're going to say in a critique, was my first critique with Joe McNally, where Joe sat down, went through my entire portfolio, gave me a critique, and he was like, this goes, that's out, this does nothing for me. He would, and it did help me really pare down my portfolio and to understand, it gave me a great understanding of what I was doing wrong, some things that I wanted to work on, and it's things that I'm still working on to this day, and that was years ago when he gave me that. So I think it was an invaluable critique. It wasn't a very fun day.
Yeah, I think mine was, and it wasn't worst, like horrible, but it was one of my first, and I always just remember, I think Bill Fortney looked at my landscape portfolio, and
that's like having Joe McNally look at your portraits, yeah.
And shots that I thought like, hey, I'm getting better here. Bill's like, nah, it's got to go. And you get very attached to photos too, and Bill's like, it doesn't do anything.
Well, for
Same
emotional
thing.
reasons, right?
Yeah. So, all right, Harry Baldman, silly question: tacos or burritos? Burritos.
Dave Clayton, who's the first Photoshop guy at his desk every morning? I would think that's Pete, right?
It's Pete. Yeah.
Pete's here really early because Pete has no life. Let's see.
No, so I wake up. So my morning ritual, because I think Pete beats us all out. My morning ritual, I usually get in 11, 12 o'clock.
No.
We all get in. No, I'm just teasing. No, but Pete
everybody gets early, but me.
All right, and who was the last Photoshop guy to leave the office? I'd say Pete.
Pete, you're really putting in some hours.
He is, dude.
What are you
Pete
doing
kicks
in
butt.
there?
Netflix,
Xbox 360. Okay, good.
Pete and RC.
Alrighty, let's see. Question for Scott. If you had the opportunity to shoot sports full time, would you tone down the teaching to travel for sports? You know what? I really love shooting sports, but the thing that I love doing the most is teaching. If I had to choose one or the other, I would still teach because I love it. I mean, it's really what gets me out of bed in the morning. It is my full-time job. I feel very blessed to have a full-time job where I get to teach because it's just, I absolutely love it. I mean, nothing makes me happier than being in front of a live audience and you look out there and you see people's heads nodding like, oh, I get it. I swear it makes all kinds of things fire in your head. I enjoy sports photography. I love shooting football because I'm a football fanatic and I love shooting motor racing and things like that. But you never get that feeling or that, like you do from a well-taught class. So I would not give up as much as I love shooting sports. I would not give it up for teaching. I love it's what I was born to do.
So can I? They didn't ask me, but can I throw something in? It just we're doing personal stupid stuff. So I was actually talking with Moose Peterson. Kind of going back and forth with Moose about this, and I shared to Moose. So I had never ever wanted to be a teacher. I never had any experience in it. I never went to school for it. I never expressed any interest in it. And my parents were both teachers.
Wow.
So, and somehow, I always envisioned myself, when I was sitting in a class that I didn't like, I always envisioned myself, what would I do if I was teaching this class? But I never went to try to become a teacher. I never went to a class, never had any formal education. And then somehow kind of evolved into this role where I teach. But when I think back to it, I'd always thought of myself one day up in front of a class. When I was sitting in classes, I'd think how I teach, but I'd never do anything about it. And then it just kind of all morphed into this thing here today.
Well, I never thought it either. I didn't grow up thinking, man, I can't wait to be a teacher. That was the last thing on my thing. I wanted to be in a band. And I was for many, many years. If you weren't in photography, would you still be teaching in some other field? Yeah, I would teach anything. I would teach milk.
Yeah,
I would teach French, I think.
I started taking.
See if Nancy was paying attention. She's zoned out.
I started taking leadership classes in my Taekwondo school so that I can teach in the school.
Yeah.
Because I enjoy it.
I used to help teach in my. I have a black belt in Taekwondo, and I used to assist in the class, and it was a lot harder than I expected. What is your high score on Angry Birds? You know what? I gave up playing Angry Birds.
I totally rock on Angry Birds.
I know. I went through as far as I could go, and then they introduced a new one, and I was like, I can't do it. Once they came out with a second Angry Birds, like the holiday edition, I threw my hands up because I felt
done.
I felt like I'd beat it, and I can't go
downloaded the
back.
latest one yesterday, and I finished it.
Let's see. Question for either. Do you prefer working with models or being outside doing sports or landscapes? I mean, I really enjoy sports. Well, it's weird because I enjoy people. Like yesterday, I got to work with a really great model. It was a guy, and he was really, really fun. And so it's a different kind of interaction. With sports, you have no interaction with the athletes at all unless they run into you, which is, you don't want interaction with them. So they're so different, it's hard to say. I do love doing portraits on location. And I do like to shoot people, not necessarily models. Models are going to be great because they absolutely show up. They're on time and things like that, but I'd prefer to work really with, what I really want to do, I want to shoot portraits of athletes. That's what I really want to do. And I've gotten to shoot some professional athletes. I'm trying to shoot more professional athletes. So that's kind of my goal is really, it's a morphing of your question. Yeah. What I really want to shoot are sports portraiture. That's what I really want to do. Okay.
I like landscapes. I love landscape. And I like people photography. It sounds weird. I love to just take a family out to a park and just shoot their family portraits. You know what? And just watch them interact with it.
You're great at that. Matt is so good at shooting families and kids. You're just you don't even think about it. It's and Matt comes back. I always go, "Are those stock photos?" No, I took those. BS. He has to show me the raw photos.
Yeah. All right. Next up, let's see here. First time you got paid for your work. How much and for what?
God, this is back in film days. I used to shoot all kinds of portraits and things back in the film days, and I got paid for that back in the. And it wasn't much. I mean, this was back in the '80s. I think I was probably making $50 a session or something. It was very little money, but $50 back then was $2,400 today. So, and I've sold prints and different things. And so it's but it started way back then.
Mine was probably mid to late 90s, and I used to do a lot of 3D abstract work with just the different 3D programs, and I'd done a bunch of stuff, and I posted it on my website, and I had somebody contact me that they wanted, and I just did it for fun, and I had somebody contact me that they wanted to use it for their packaging and everything like that.
Oh, nice.
So that's pretty cool.
All right, what about a Kelby training class on color profiles and paper profiles to get your printed output to better match? We have one of those. Go watch it. Yep. All right, we just a couple more. We got to cut off here.
Oh gosh.
BJ, well, we started late, so you can't go by that clock.
Okay.
It's ish. BJH Down Under, what was the biggest light bulb moment you had when it came to photography? You know what the biggest light bulb moment for me was? When I realized that lighting is not nearly as hard as you think it is. When it really comes down to it, studio lighting really throws a lot of people off, but it's how studio lighting has been taught. Studio lighting is freaking easy. And it's just, that was like, it was when it all of a sudden goes, oh, you go, oh my God, why was I worried about this? So,
No, mine's similar too, because I used to have this, I don't know why, and I think I knew deep down it wasn't right, but I used to have this image that aperture and shutter speed somehow became different once you threw flash in there.
yeah, oh.
It doesn't. Aperture and shutter speed are still the exact same
It's
things.
a light source. Okay. What did Scott do for work after he left photography? I was, for many years, I was a financial consultant. I was with Merrill Lynch, Pierce, Finner, and Smith. Then I went and worked for a bank. I was in the financial department for a bank for many years. And then I left the bank literally to start a graphic design. Small graphic design studio. It wound up doing a lot of work for advertising agencies that were too small to have their own in-house department, and that's where I started writing copy. Started writing advertising and marketing copy for them. All right, well, two more we're going to take. We're going to have to cut it loose.
You got this one?
All right. If Scott and Matt, if you could sit in only one class at this Photoshop world, whose would it be? Now, if it was my first time ever to go to there's two answers. If it was my first time ever to go to Photoshop World, I would sit in Jay Mazel's class. I've seen Jay Mazel's class numerous times. Now, if it were me this time, I would probably go, if I had one class I could watch, probably Joel Grimes.
I was just going to, Joel
Probably
on the top of my list.
Dave Black. You know what? Dave Black's class. That would be another one that I would love to see. I see Dave present at the end of the conference, but I've never actually got to sit in his live class. Well, that's not true. Years ago, when the first day I met Dave, I sat through a 3-hour class with him. That's when I fell in love with Dave Black. But I haven't seen him again since then. I've seen his online classes.
So, you know whose class I will sit in this Photoshop world?
Who?
Lindsay Adler.
Oh, Lindsay Adler.
I'll definitely sit in on Lindsay's.
God, there's so many good people.
You know, and it's a hard question because if you've never been, like, am I in your shoes or am I in my shoes? If I'm in my shoes, I'm going to go to Lindsay Adler's class, probably go to Joel Grimes' class. If I'm in your shoes and you've never been to Photoshop World, you're just learning Photoshop, I'd sit on any Ben Wilmore class.
Yeah, Ben Wilmore.
I mean,
I've never sat in his class where I didn't learn something.
Yep.
And I feel like I'm pretty decent at Photoshop.
You're
but
okay.
I sit in the back of Ben's class, and every single time I learn something new. You know who else I learned from? Calvin Hollywood. Mm-hmm. I always learn from Frank Duerhoff. You can sit in any of those guys' classes and you learn from them. Last question. What's the one thing that you're glad you've learned from Jay Mazel? I learned this in a very, very embarrassing way. In my class called A Day with Jay Mazel, I mentioned that I was very frustrated with my photography, which, by the way, I always am very frustrated with my photography, always, always. And he says, do you know why? And I said, no, but I would love to know why, Jay. And that was a really stupid response for me to say to Jay. Jay says, if you want to be like a champion weightlifter, can you go by the gym, lift once, take a couple of weeks off, go back and lift once. A couple of weeks later, you lift maybe 2 days in a row. How good are you going to be? I'm like, well, not very good. He goes, do you shoot every day? No. He goes, that's why. You're frustrated because you're not shooting enough. He goes, you should have a camera with you everywhere you go. You need to shoot every single day. If you want to get really, really good at something, to be world class, you shoot every day.
That's a good point.
It was, and I really felt like an idiot. So
I think one of the big things I picked up is that Jay brackets.
Yeah, he brackets everything.
I don't know why, I just figured.
And in the video, I asked Jay point blank, why do you bracket? He says, I don't know whether I'm going to like a darker version, the right exposure, or a brighter version, but I don't want to go into Photoshop and move the sliders. I want to look on the screen and go, bang, it's that one. Mm-hmm. So that's pretty good. Hey, we want to show you something. We're going to have prizes. Nancy, prize time, because we're about to show you something very new and unique here, so stick around. Nancy?
Yeah, let's do this really quickly. So now we are giving away, there's 2 tickets to the Austin seminar One person each is going to get one ticket. There is
Yes.
the Nat baseball cap. There is the copy of the Photoshop Elements book. And there is a copy of Matt's compositing book. Am I correct? Those are the prizes?
Yes, you are
All of
correct.
them? Okay. In the live blog, since it is moderated, so it will not publish, give us your name, your email address, and the prize you want. Only type it in once, get it all in, and then when it's all over, I will go through and we will randomly select the winners, and ta-da!
Hey, that's very clever the way you've done the moderated thing, so they don't have to see their email addresses and published. That's very good. Hey, all right. So we're about to show you something new. Thank you, Nancy, by the way.
No problem.
We're going to show you something new. So we are very excited. We do a magazine for lighting called Light It. It's for studio photography and for hot shoe flash. That's it right there, Light It. The new issue just got released today, so this is issue number 5. This thing has taken off like wildfire, so much so that we are actually now developing it, ready, for the Android. Ooh. Well, we didn't want to go through all what we had to go through for the Android, which is quite a number of bells and whistles, because the software company that developed this for us didn't even have an Android version until we knew the magazine was going to be a success. But the magazine has done crazy well. So it's for iPad only now, but of course it's coming for. But anyway, the new issue's out here. We're going to show you just a little bit of it real quick. So if we can switch over to the iPad, there it is.
We go.
So this is the iPad Live. Matt's got it here in his hands. And so that's Schmelzer's class right there. He's doing a thing on reflectors that's just...
Yeah, oh, he's good.
He is so good. I really just like him.
You know, one of my favorite things is you just tap on the step, and then you just hit the right arrow key. It automatically takes you
to the next step.
To the next area. So you don't have to like remember, oh, I got to zoom out and figure out where I was.
Right. Also, any photo that you see in the magazine, if you double click on it, it goes full screen. So find us like a smaller... Well, there you go. But that's kind of was already big. See if you can find a smaller photo like up in the left corner. Okay, that's the right corner. There we go. But so that way you can really see detail as you go through the whole magazine. But we have columns in here from like Frank Doerhoff.
Oh, here's a perfect. This is a good one. Wow.
Yeah, Nicole's got she's in the 60 Seconds feature in here.
Yeah, she's in here.
We got a new feature here from Ibarianex.
There's Nicolesy.
There's Nicolesy.
Nicole S.
Beautiful
Young.
food photographer. She's very, very good.
She does a lot of stock work too.
Yeah, she's terrific, actually.
So,
and Schmelzer stuff. There's a bunch of more stuff in there. Of course, there's the gear guide, and there's Kevin Ames now with his lighting handbook, which is terrific. And so anyway, there's a lot of great stuff in there. It's $2.99, which is basically, if you buy a decent cup of coffee, it costs more than this.
And if I can make a plea out there. So we work very, very closely with everybody that's actually getting out there to get articles for this. So, and I spend a good amount of time with the editor of the magazine as far as picking topics. If you guys have topic ideas, send them in to us, okay? When you send them in here, find us on Twitter. There's places in the app that'll tell you where. Send them in. If you have topic ideas, we're open to putting anything, because this is brand new. So it's one of those chances where like everybody out there can really shape where this magazine goes.
All right, one last word. So I just noticed a comment from Monty Lamontagne. Hey, Monty is my guest blogger today on my blog. And I actually stopped and showed my wife this morning his illustration work. And she was like, she goes, well, those are photos that he's painted over, right? I'm like, no. She's like, are you kidding me? Go to my blog at scottkelby.com and check out some of his work. He's insane, and he's more than just a good commenter. No, he honestly, he's got and the story's great too. So please take a few moments and check it out on my blog at scottkelby.com. He's the guest blogger today, and this is Wednesday if you're watching this later in the week. Hey, thanks everybody for watching. Nancy, thank you very much for joining us today. And yes, you are very gesture-ific. Brad Moore, also over here helping us out, and Pete Collins, all the crew here, Eric Kuna and his able crew, and especially I'd like to shout out to Juan over there on the jib. How's the jib doing today, Juan?
We're not supposed to
He's
look
moving
at
it and then never show it. There it is. There's the jib up there.
We're not supposed to look
Hi,
at
Juan. Of course, Juan really isn't up where the camera is. Juan is actually back there where the end of the camera.
Okay, Juan, follow my hand.
Juan.
Left. Faster.
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't go that fast.
It doesn't go that fast. It's a jib. It's supposed to be slow and smooth. Stop it.
Oh,
All right.
Brad's giving us the wrap-up sign.
All right, guys. Thanks very much. Also, thanks to all of our sponsors. Thanks to Westcott and Adobe for the cool thing they're doing. Thanks to MPix, who sponsors the show. Go to mpix.com. If you are thinking of getting something printed, they are an online printing lab. They're the very, very best. They're the printing lab that we use. They're the only printing lab that we use. They do books, they do prints, and if you get it to them by 11 in the morning here in the U.S., they'll have it to you by tomorrow.
Sweet.
Have a good day, everybody. Take care.
Take care.
Adios, muchacho.
Peace out.
This week's episode of The Grid is sponsored by Impix. Shoot today, upload tonight, we ship tomorrow. Manfrotto. Imagine more. On One Software, software that gets you back to shooting.
Adorama, more than a camera store. And Tiffin, helping create the world's greatest images.